Hello and welcome to today's video. This year I really wanted to just be really consistent with doing monthly reading wrap-ups, so we are starting out strong with my January reading wrap-up. I read 11 books this month, and overall I would say it was a good reading month. I think I have literally my best read of the year from this month, so that's pretty awesome. But I also have my worst read of the year so far. Let's just get into it, shall we? So the very first book that I read in January, the first book of the entire year, was actually a reread, and that was Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This was a reread. It's my second read of this book, and I loved it probably even more than the first time I read it. I know most people don't have the same thoughts that I do on this book because they think this is kind of like a filler book. It's like really annoying, but I love it. I just love this whole world, this whole series. Everything about it is good to me. I felt like, because people have the complaint that it's like there's too much like miscommunication back and forth, but to me I'm like, it's kind of realistic. But if you don't know what this book is, it is the sequel to Fourth Wing, which is just about a bunch of dragon riders. They are going to this like war college where it is very deadly, it's very intense all the time. They are training to eventually become like almost like military kind of people, dragon riders, and they are going to be fighting in the like battles that are going on at the borders, stuff like that. It's so good. The romance is so incredible. It has one of my favorite characters ever. If you have never heard of Xaden, where have you been? He's just the best. But yeah, I gave this one 5 stars, obviously. I love this series so incredibly much. Then I read Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I do not own this one anymore because I didn't really like it. I gave this one 3.5 stars, but I honestly, now thinking about it, I think I would just lower it to a 3-star because overall, I just thought it was really boring. This is about a girl who is like sent to this land to become the God King, to become his wife. Initially, her sister was supposed to be sent. Her sister was kind of raised throughout her entire life knowing she was going to be sent to be this man's wife. But then at the very last second, their dad sends the other sister who has no training, has no idea what she's in for. I think that was like my favorite part of the book, just her and like the God King, their kind of relationship forming and everything. I thought that was very interesting and good. The magic system was actually quite interesting too. They had these things called breaths where they could like breathe life into an inanimate object and make it come to life, and then they could then take that breath back into their body, and everyone has a breath in them, but a lot, like certain people have like hundreds of breaths or like thousands, and then we have like the gods who have like hundreds of thousands or like millions or something like that. I don't know. And then the God King, he has like infinity breaths or something like that. So yeah, it was like the concept was really good, the magic system was really good, but I was so bored, and it was a really long book, and pretty much the whole time I was just like, yeah, I'm ready for this to be over. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one 3 stars. Then I read For She Is Wrath. This is by Emily Varga. This is another book that I just didn't like. We have a few on here that I sadly just didn't end up liking, which is like rare for me because I feel like I normally pick up books that I know I'm going to like because I feel like I know my taste, but I don't know, this was a weird month. But yeah, this one, it is about this girl. We start off with her in prison because she was kind of framed for this murder that she did not do. She was betrayed by the boy that she loves, and so this whole book is about her like breaking out of prison and then exacting revenge on the people who have hurt her. It could have been so good, but the writing, in my opinion, just was not the best. It felt like we were rushing through everything so quickly. We never had time to just sit in a moment. It was like, okay, this happened, we're moving on. Like the entire book was just like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And yeah, it just was like, I don't know, just not great. And it's like, it needed to have more detail, and yeah, just wasn't great, and I gave this one 2 stars. Then I read The Heroes of Olympus, Book 2, The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan, and I loved this book. I just really love all of his books that I've read so far. I mean, they've all been in the Percy Jackson world, and I'm obsessed with Percy Jackson, so it makes sense that I would love it. So the first book in the series, which is Lost Hero, I think, it follows like 3 completely new characters, and then it's just like the same thing. Like they're demigods, they're finding out they're demigods, then they are given this quest to go on, and then it was the same thing with this one. But in this one, we're actually following Percy Jackson, which was so nice to be back in his perspective. But then we're also given 2 new characters, and just the story is, you can tell it's building up to be like this crazy cool plot, because there's this one prophecy that a group of 7 people are going to go on this quest. So it's going to be like the 3 new people from the first book, Percy Jackson, and the 2 new people from this book, and Annabeth, I'm guessing. And so we're all just building up to that big quest that was prophesied. And this one was very good, and I rated it 4 stars. Then I read Revenant X. This is by David Wellington. This is the sequel to Paradise 1, a sci-fi horror book that I read last year. This was so good. So Paradise 1 follows a crew of people who are going on this mission to kind of scope out what's going on Paradise 1. Paradise 1 is like a newly established settlement on this planet. Our main character, her mother actually was sent to this planet, and the reason they're getting sent on this mission is because they have recently like lost communication with the settlers on Paradise 1. And so they're just kind of scoping it out, seeing what's going on. But actually the first entire book takes place in outer space when they're on their mission, and so many wild, crazy things happen. Like I said, it is a sci-fi horror novel, so just expect some really crazy, kind of graphic, horrible things to happen, but it's so well done and perfect. I had originally rated the first one like 4.5 stars, but I bumped it up to a 5, and this one actually takes place on Paradise 1. More crazy, like terrible things that you would never want to happen to you, things happen in this book, and it is a 5-star. This series is so good, and it definitely set it up for a 3rd book, so I'm really excited to find out when that next book is coming out, because I cannot wait to get to it. Then I read a duology that is part of a series, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of Night. So I read The Serpent and the Wings of Night, then I read the novella you're supposed to read called 6 Scorched Roses, and then I read the last book in that duology, and that is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. It started out so promising. In the first book, we're following our main character. She is a human that lives in the vampire world. She is the daughter of like the vampire king. She joins this like competition, this kind of tournament thing. And if you win, you get like a blessing from the vampire goddess Nyaxia. And she really wants to become like, kind of just like a vampire, to become, it's like this certain word, I can't remember what it is, but basically you like can be like completely connected to someone else, and you like share each other's power and stuff like that. And she really wants to have that with her father so that she can be like safe in this world, something like that. So she joins this tournament and she meets this guy. He's a vampire. They form a romance, and overall it was pretty good. I really enjoyed the tournament, the trials and stuff. I thought it was very exciting and interesting, but then the romance kicked in and I was literally like, ew, we do not need this. This weird stuff. I quickly learned I'm not into vampire stuff. That is not my thing. I don't like it. I don't like blood, first of all. Blood makes me feel icky and gross and like queasy. And so obviously there's a lot of blood involved if you're gonna be reading like an intense vampire series. I don't know what I was thinking, but I really thought I was gonna rate this series 5 stars. And after reading, so it's like a series that is 2 duologies. After reading this first one, I know I'm not going to continue into the second one. And let me explain why. Because even though I didn't like the romance, I loved all the other elements. I thought it was super good and interesting, and I don't know, I really liked it. And I really liked the main character. She was like really cool and I thought she was great. And then the novella you read in between these 2 books is six Scorched Roses, and this follows two completely different new characters, and this was probably my favorite book in the three that I read. But it's just like these, I think I know like the main girl is like in her 30s, and they were kind of cursed by their god in their land, and like everybody's getting this sickness that turns their skin to dust, and her sister has it. And so the whole book, our main character is trying to find like a cure for this sickness to save her people, to save her sister, and that cure comes from vampire blood. And so she meets with this vampire like 6 times, and in exchange for his blood, she gives him a rose. It was very, very well done. It was probably one of the best novellas I've ever read, but again, the romance was just so icky. I didn't like it. So I gave Serpent and the Wings of Night 3.75 stars. I gave Six Scorched Roses 4 stars, and then we come to Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, which there was not a single element I enjoyed about this book, sadly. The characters sucked. I did not like them at all. I loved the girl in the first one, and then it's like she lost all personality. Like, she didn't have a backbone the entire book. I was like, literally, what is happening? There's no personality with her right now. She's like just gonna do everything for this guy, and it's, I don't know, it was really weird. And then the guy I really did not like. He was annoying. Couldn't have cared less for the battle that was going on. Literally did not enjoy any of it. I gave it 2 stars. So that is why I'm not continuing the series, because Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, it was just literally my least favorite book of the year. 2 stars. Moving on, I feel like I talked about that for a really long time. Then I read what I really think is going to be my favorite book out of the entire year, because I don't know how anything could be better. And since I finished it, it's like nothing has really hit, and I'm in like this funk because this book was so good. And that is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is book number 3 in the Empyrean series. What? I don't know what that was. Anyways, the Empyrean series, which is the Fourth Wing series. I don't even know where to begin. Everything about this was perfect to me, and every review I've seen of this has been like almost every review is like, this book sucked. It was terrible. I'm like, what are you talking about? It was literal perfection. But then like Larry Reeds read this, and she was like, it was literally perfect. Oh my gosh, so good. And I was like, thank you, finally. And now I'm finally starting to see people say that they really enjoyed this one. I'm like, it's so annoying how people are just haters automatically. If you read Fourth Wing and you didn't like it, and then you read Iron Flame and you didn't like it, why are you reading Onyx Storm? It feels like the people who are reading this and then knowing they're gonna hate it and then posting about how they hate it, it's like they're trying to make us feel stupid for liking the series. It's so frustrating to me. That tangent, done. But this was so good. Xaden was so good. Riddick was so good. Even Dane was so good. Violet, perfection. Taryn and Andarna, again, perfection. Literally, like, how can anything be better than this? And the ending, I literally read the ending twice, like just back to back, because I was like, no, what is going on? What is going on? And then I just sat there and cried, and oh my gosh, I just know the 4th book is gonna be so good. Obviously, this is 5 stars. Next, I read Games Untold by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is a book of short stories, and it takes place over the entire timeline of the Inheritance Games series and world. So there's stories from way before Inheritance Games even started, and then up until the Grandest Game. Yeah, up until the Grandest Game, or like right before the Grandest Game. This was so good. There was one story in here specifically about Avery's mom when she was younger that literally had me sobbing. It was really well done, and I just loved seeing all my favorite characters, and we get stories from Xander and Nash, which is so great because we don't get a lot of them from the Inheritance Games series. I love them both a lot. I really love Xander. We also get to see my favorite character, Grayson. Also, like, the first story was in Avery's perspective, which was really nice because I missed her. This was just so much fun. If you're one of the people who are tired of Jennifer Lynn Barnes coming out with more Inheritance Games books, I would say don't read this because you're probably not gonna enjoy it that much. But if you are like me or like my sister, we were obsessed with the Inheritance Games books, and like we were like, as many books as you come out with, Jennifer, we are going to read and we are going to love them. Then if you're like that, then I would read this book. I gave this one 4.5 stars, so close to 5 stars, but it just wasn't quite there. But I just miss it. I really want to reread the entire series, but there's just not enough time. And the final book that I read in January was Grey After Dark. This is by Noelle W. Iley. This is a thriller book, which I don't normally read, but I actually read this for my book club, and we just had our book club yesterday, and it turned out to just be me and my friend Faith, and it was so fun. This is a thriller about a girl who was in the Olympics, and she's in the Winter Olympics, and so this takes place during the summer, her off season, and so she can't really train that much. So she takes a summer job at a resort in the Idaho wilderness. She is still wanting to train, so she goes on these long runs out in the woods by herself. And one day she gets kidnapped by these 2 men while she's on a run. And that's all I'm gonna say about what happens in the plot. Well, actually, I'll also say that we get her perspective, but then we also get her teammate's perspective. His name is Brent, and he's in love with her, and she doesn't know how she feels about him. We get his perspective as well. He goes searching for her. I really enjoyed Brent's perspective a lot because it was very exciting. Like, they're out in the wilderness, and he's just trying to find her, and he's trying to like forage for berries and hunt animals, and I really liked that. It was super exciting, and I enjoyed reading from the girl's perspective, but it also, like we were talking about it yesterday, just saying how the whole time we just felt kind of ugh, you know, reading it, because you know eventually she's gonna get like assaulted, and it's like the whole time I was just waiting for it to happen and like just preparing to DNF because I can't read about that stuff. It just is not something that I want to read. But it never gets like graphic. It's never detailed or anything. So that's something that you should know going into this. Like, it doesn't give any detail of anything graphic. I don't know how else to explain that without like using words that YouTube won't like. But it's very good. It's very suspenseful, and it's just very eerie, and it's something that you can't imagine ever happening to you. This is based on a true story of a girl from Montana. I don't know how much of it is true, but it seems like a lot of it is made up probably, but it was very good, and I rated this 4 stars. So yes, these are all the books that I read, plus the ones that I don't own. 11 books in total. I had overall a good reading month, I would say. It was a very mixed reading month. Let me know if you've read any of these books, and if you share my thoughts on them, or if you have different thoughts on them. Specifically Onyx Storm, I want to know what people are really thinking about this book. Thank you so very much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.